Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash, Barakathom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who rule and teach well. In peace and salutations to Ya'akim out there pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Raya with another video. And I'm going to start off with Genesis chapter 27, verse 41. And Esau, the so-called white man, hated Jacob, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him, the blessing and the birthright of the kingdom of heaven. And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand, then will I slay my brother Jacob. And that's the spirit these Edomites, the so-called white people, have towards you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, which are the true children of Israel. It's not based on skin color or anything like that. It's all through the spirit, and it all goes back to this event right here where Jacob got the blessing and the birthright. So that's why these Edomites have always been oppressing you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans all throughout history, and nothing is ever going to change until Esau, Edom, is taken out of the power seat, which is right around the corner. But in this video, we're just going to get into some of Esau's history and how he's had that perpetual hatred towards you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, and how he wants to slay you and continually slay you and get rid of you if he could. And what we're going to be going into in this video is a carnival game that used to be played called African Dodger or Hit the Nigger Baby. Just to go to show how much of a devil you Edomites are and why we call you Edomites the devil. Blacks as targets, it should say Israelites. Carnival games in the 19th and early 20th centuries. So you've got some Edomites that played these games back then still walking around today. Highlighted and exploited. It says white people, but it should say Edomite people's hostility or perpetual hatred towards you. It says blacks, but it should say Israelites. And where it says blacks and so-called African Americans, it should also say Judites, because that's your true name. You're from the southern kingdom of Judah, presenting Judites as willing victims of Edomite aggression made the violence seem normal and legitimate. The days of mourning for my father at hand, then will I slay my brother Jacob. Games like the African Dodger, also known as Hit the Nigger Baby or Hit the Coon, which used actual human targets, were commonplace in local fairs, carnivals, and circuses. Sometimes a picture or model of a Judite was used instead, but the message was clear: unprovoked, violent aggression towards Israelites was the social norm, because it goes back to that perpetual hatred of Jacob getting the blessing and the birthright of the kingdom instead of Esau. And I'm going to let the images in this video play while I let the commentary from another video play over it.
A little bit. The African Dodger, also known as Hit the Nigger Baby or Hit the Coon, was a carnival game. The purpose of the game was to hit the target with a ball, a baseball, not a softball, a baseball. We all know how hard baseballs are. You paid for 3 balls just like you do at the carnival today. And the object was to hit the target with one of your 3 throws and win a prize. Now, contrary to what we see in the carnivals today where we're trying to hit a target, this one had a real live human being that happened to be black as the target. And the game was so popular nationwide that newspapers mentioned the African Dodger game along with the other attractions such as trained animals, illusionists,
real
video
history,
arcades, merry-go-rounds, and magic shows. The African Dodger game was widespread in American society. In
1965.
If you couldn't make it to the fair, you could purchase the game for 69 cents from Bloomingdale's. And it actually featured a black face poking through a canvas reading, hit the Dodger, knock him out. Every time you hit Sambo, the bell rings. And a short article in the Wayne County Democrat cited authorities authorities on anthropology, who state that the Negro has a very heavy and massive cranium constituting a bony arch of great resisting power. One scientist refers to the common habit of Negroes of both sexes in button like rams, which indicates that a Negro's head bones have defensive strength unknown in a Caucasian race. And on July 28, 1911, the game we know today as the Dunkin' Booth originated out of a game that was called African Dip, as well as being
He's
called
looking at a
Hit the
rock
Trigger,
instead of using a
Duck a
baseball.
Nigga. There was also a game, if you want to call it a game, that was called Hit the Nigga Baby. This game was equivalent to hitting a piñata that we see youth at a party swinging at. Black female babies were believed to be more ideal than black baby boys because females were seen as naturally weak and whiny.
You're a damn devil,
Many
Esau.
black slave mothers were actually forced to breastfeed the babies beforehand because it was more likely to make them vomit and cry from the blows of the children's sticks. See how evil these people were. If any one of the babies drifted out of consciousness, the adults would pinch their skin to the point of peeling it to wake them back up. How sick is that? And in New Orleans, many of us have heard about black babies being used as alligator bait. Well, this is where it came from. In New Orleans and many other southern states, the babies that were killed during this game were immediately fed to the alligators in the bayou or used as gator hunt bait.
And you Edomites are going to pay for all this. You think you've gotten away from it, but you haven't. And that's what's stated in the scriptures. I'm going to start it off with Ezekiel chapter 35, verse 3. And say unto it, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, Behold, O Mount Seir, which is synonymous with Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, because just like Israel is a people before it's a place, Seir is a people before it's a place. I am against thee, and I will stretch out my hand against thee, and I will make thee most desolate. I will lay thy cities waste, and thou shalt be desolate, and thou shalt know that I am Yahweh. America, also known biblically as Babylon the Great and spiritual Egypt and spiritual Sodom and Gomorrah, is going to be hit with 200 million nuclear missiles, as well as the laser beams from the chariot of the Most High, which people ignorantly refer to as so-called UFOs, from sea to shining sea, turning it into the biblical lake of fire, an uninhabitable wasteland. And other Edomite places are going to be hit with nuclear missiles as well, but not completely destroyed. But after you Edomites are taken out of power, you're going to be thrown into the new ghettos. Hey, you're going to be thrown into pits underground. You shall never build cities again. Verse 5, because thou hast had a perpetual hatred, the days of mourning for my father are over, then will I slay my brother Jacob. African dodger, hit the nigger baby, whatever, etc., and has shed the blood of the children of Yasharallah by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity, in the time that their iniquity had an end, from the transatlantic slave trade to slavery to Reconstruction to Jim Crow, all the way up until today, with Jake's getting shot down by the police. Therefore, as I live, saith the Lord Yahweh, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee. Sith thou hath not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee. The so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, which are the true children of Israel, once we're back in power, we're going to get our hands on you and do double unto you as to what you did unto us, but of course in righteousness. This is Jeremiah 30 and 16. Therefore, all they that devour thee shall be devoured, chiefly Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, as well as these other heathen nations that had a part in our oppression. And all thine adversaries, every one of them shall go into captivity, hardcore bondage and slavery for 1,000 years. And they that spoil thee shall be a spoil, and all they that prey upon thee will I give for a prey. And after that 1,000 years, these other heathen nations are going to be able to go back to their lands, even though they're going to be under our subjection. But after that 1,000 years, you Edomites are going to be eradicated from the face of the earth. Y'all are going to be gathered together and burned up. This is Revelation chapter 13, verse 9 through 10. In the last book of the Bible, Revelation in the New Testament. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. The transatlantic slave trade of not just the so-called Negroes, but the so-called Latinos and Native Americans as well, because they were brought from the Americas to Europe. They were actually the first to go into slavery. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Shooting down Jake in the streets, lynching Jake, playing Hit the Nigger Baby. Here's the patience and faith of the saints, which the saints are diligently waiting for this day to come to pass. And it is right around the corner. And of course you have these Edomites that'll say, well, that was our forefathers. We didn't have anything to do about it. Just get over it. Let's have peace. You're a racist, which is what you can see in comment sections that deal with videos and information like this. Real quick, this is on an article from insolentpolitics.blogspot.com talking about the same thing. African Dodger, a game also known as Hit the Nigger Baby. When we go to the comments, what do we have? Justin Douglas, get over the past. You can't change, and move the fuck on. And of course he'd have a image of a World War II era German soldier. What do we have here? History is to be remembered and learned from. It is not to be held onto or grudged upon, but held into consideration in order to avoid reacting and repeating events. But what do we just read? He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. And also in this video, it scares me that there are so-called black people hating on so-called white people because of this. There's nothing to do about what happened 100+ years ago. Get over slavery. But what about 9/11? Y'all harken on to that forever. Or the Alamo. Years ago. Hating won't get us anywhere. And yes, this is wrong. But it gets worse if we keep hating. This is in the book of Sirach or Ecclesiasticus. In the Apocrypha, chapter 41, I'm going to start at verse 5. The children of sinners are abominable children, and they that are conversant in the dwelling of the ungodly, the inheritance of sinners' children shall perish. Their posterity shall have a perpetual reproach. The children will complain of an ungodly father, because they shall be reproached for his sake. They're complaining about what their forefathers did hundreds of years ago, how it wasn't them, how we should just all learn to love each other and get along. But if you understand the Bible and reincarnation, then you are your forefathers, and now it's time to pay the tab. This is Isaiah 14:21 through 22. Prepare slaughter for his children for the iniquity of their fathers, because again they are their fathers through the reincarnation, that they do not rise, nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities.